Welcome to Cardano for Everyone, a podcast series from Pasta Steak Pool. Each episode explores something new about Cardano in a way that's simple and accessible for everyone. In the mood for some Cardano magic? Let's get started.
Welcome to another deep dive today. We're going to be exploring the Cardano Treasury System. It's a really interesting way of funding and governing a blockchain ecosystem.
It really tries to move away from those traditional funding models that we see in the blockchain space. So, instead of relying on things like initial coin offerings or venture capital, Cardano has this self-sustaining system, and it's a system that really tries to empower the community.
Interesting. So how does that work?
It comes down to the ADA holders. They're the stakeholders in the Cardano ecosystem, and they get a direct say in how the resources are used. You can almost imagine it like a giant decentralized piggy bank where everybody gets to decide what we're going to spend the money on.
It's about giving the community a voice.
Exactly. And that's where the concept of liquid democracy comes in.
Liquid democracy.
It's a system where ADA holders can either vote directly on proposals or they can delegate their voting power to representatives.
Okay, so people, they think, have the expertise to make good decisions. This is all sounding very democratic and forward-thinking. So where does the funding for this treasury come from?
Cardano's treasury is designed to be sustainable, and it gets its funding from two primary sources. The first is transaction fees. That's a small percentage that's taken on every transaction on the network. And the second is a portion of newly minted ADA, which is created each epoch.
Yeah, remind me what an epoch is again.
An epoch is basically a time period on the Cardano blockchain. You can think of it like a chapter in the blockchain's ongoing story.
So how does having these two sources make it sustainable?
It's kind of a clever transition mechanism. Initially, the Treasury relies more heavily on that newly minted ADA. But as the network grows and transaction volume increases, the proportion of funding that comes from those transaction fees rises. Eventually, that allows the Treasury to become more self-sufficient. It's like a safety net that gradually disappears as the network matures.
And becomes more capable of supporting itself from those fees.
This balancing act ensures a steady flow of funds into the Treasury, but without jeopardizing the long-term health of the ADA supply.
So we've talked about how ADA holders have a say in how these funds are used, but how does that actually work? Can anyone just submit a proposal for funding?
Anyone who is holding ADA can submit a proposal for a project that they believe would benefit the Cardano ecosystem. And these proposals can range from developing new features on the blockchain to creating educational resources to even supporting community-driven artistic initiatives.
So it really is a very open and inclusive system.
It is.
So what happens after a proposal has been submitted?
Other ADA holders, then they evaluate those proposals and they vote on which ones deserve funding from the Treasury.
And that goes back to that liquid democracy idea. If somebody doesn't have the time or the technical expertise to look at every single proposal, they can delegate their vote. And it's like choosing a representative to make decisions on their behalf.
And that delegation system is crucial for ensuring that the decision-making process is both efficient and well-informed.
So this all sounds very promising. But is there a real-world example of this Cardano Treasury System in action?
The most prominent example is Project Catalyst. It's a community-led innovation fund that has already allocated millions of dollars to hundreds of projects.
Wow.
Really showcasing the power of decentralized funding and community-driven development.
So it's not just a theoretical concept, it's actually making a tangible impact.
Project Catalyst really is a testament to turn ideas into reality and empower the community to actively shape the future of Cardano.
What makes Project Catalyst so compelling?
Well, Project Catalyst acts as a platform where anyone with an idea can submit a proposal. And the idea has to be, something that could benefit Cardano. And what's really remarkable is it's open to everyone.
Okay, so you don't need to be a blockchain developer.
Not at all.
Or have a super technical background to participate.
If you're just someone with a vision for improving the Cardano ecosystem, Project Catalyst welcomes your participation.
Can you walk me through the process? Like, how does a proposal actually get selected for funding?
The selection process has many facets to it, and it's designed to be fair and transparent. So first you have individuals or teams that submit their proposals. And these proposals outline the project's goals, the methodologies that will be used, and the impact that they're hoping to achieve. The proposal needs to articulate the problem it's trying to solve, the solution that's being proposed,
Okay.
and how this aligns with Cardano's vision and its values.
And then comes the community voting.
ADA holders carefully evaluate those proposals and then cast their votes.
So they consider the potential benefits. So in this voting process, how is funding allocated based on the votes?
The funding a project receives is directly proportional to the number of votes it gets from the community. So it's really a translation of that community support into financial backing.
What kind of projects have actually received funding through Project Catalyst?
We've seen a huge diversity of projects. Some projects have focused on building essential infrastructure for the ecosystem, things like decentralized exchanges or identity solutions,
So those are the foundational pieces that might help Cardano over time.
to become more robust and decentralized. But it's not just that. Funding has also gone towards educational initiatives to make blockchain technology more accessible to a wider audience. And we've seen a lot of support for projects that explore how blockchain can intersect with creative fields like art, music, and content creation. It really exemplifies how that decentralized approach can fuel innovation across a variety of fields.
Okay.
And there's a big focus on making the voting process more user-friendly and accessible.
So that people can actually engage with it. Are there other challenges beyond voter participation?
Another challenge is maintaining the quality of the proposals that are submitted.
So making sure that they're valuable to the ecosystem.
So Cardano has these guidelines and a pretty rigorous evaluation criteria for the proposals. There's a review process that's transparent and that involves community members and experts
Okay.
who assess each proposal.
What the potential impact will be.
It's about striking a balance between fostering innovation and ensuring that the funds are used responsibly and effectively. The Cardano community is constantly learning, adapting, and refining the Project Catalyst model, trying to address the challenges and maximize the impact it can make.
Given this emphasis on community-driven development, what are the roles of the Cardano Foundation and IOG in all this?
While the Cardano Foundation and IOG play crucial roles in the development and maintenance of the Cardano blockchain, their influence on Project Catalyst is intentionally limited.
Okay.
So they provide guidance and support, but the ultimate decision-making power rests with the ADA holders.
So it is a genuinely community-led initiative.
Exactly. It's the community's creativity, passion, and collective intelligence that drive Project Catalyst and shape its direction. The Cardano Foundation and IOG have provided the framework, but it's the community that is the heart and soul.
So the community has the final say. It's really cool to see that level of decentralization in action. What does the success of Project Catalyst tell us about the future of blockchain governance and funding?
Well, I think Project Catalyst's success demonstrates that community-driven development can be a tangible reality. It highlights how empowering individuals and harnessing collective intelligence can lead to more transparent, equitable, and sustainable systems.
It creates this picture of a much more democratic and participatory future where people have a greater voice in shaping the systems that affect their lives.
Exactly. And Project Catalyst is leading the way. It's demonstrating that a more decentralized and community-driven future is actually within our reach.
It's exciting to see these models emerging. Earlier, we talked about how the Treasury is trying to transition from this reliance on newly minted ADA to a more sustainable fee-based model.
Yeah.
Where does Project Catalyst fit into that bigger picture?
As the Cardano network grows and the transaction volume increases, the revenue generated from transaction fees will also rise, providing a more sustainable source of funding for the Treasury.
Which eventually will reduce the need to rely on the newly minted ADA.
So it's a gradual shift to a more self-sustaining system.
And Project Catalyst plays a key role in this transition. As the Treasury becomes more dependent on those transaction fees, the significance of these community-driven funding mechanisms like Project Catalyst will only grow.
So even as the funding model evolves, the community keeps that central role.
Precisely. Project Catalyst ensures that Cardano remains a truly decentralized and community-driven ecosystem. We spent a lot of time talking about community and the community's role in all this, but now I want to know what makes it work.
None of it would be possible without a strong foundation.
And in the case of the Cardano Treasury, that foundation is the Cardano blockchain itself, which operates on a proof-of-stake consensus mechanism called Ouroboros. Now, I've heard about Ouroboros before in the context of Cardano sustainability. How does that relate to the security of the Treasury?
Ouroboros secures the network by those who hold and stake ADA. So it's not about using energy-intensive mining like some other blockchains. What this means is that the more ADA you stake, the more influence you have on keeping that network secure.
So it's in the best interest of everyone who has a stake in Cardano to make sure the network stays safe. But how does that connect to the Treasury itself?
The Treasury is basically a set of smart contracts that operate on the Cardano blockchain. And these contracts define the rules and processes that govern the whole thing.
Okay, so everything from proposal submission to voting to allocation of funds.
And because they're on a secure and decentralized blockchain, the system is really transparent and resistant to tampering.
Earlier, you mentioned that cryptography plays a key role. What are the specific cryptographic elements that help ensure the security of the Cardano Treasury?
Well, one of the most interesting cryptographic tools is zero-knowledge proofs, or ZKPs.
ZKPs.
Yeah. Imagine being able to prove that, something without actually revealing what that information is.
Oh, wow.
That's the power of ZKPs.
Okay, that sounds like magic. How is that used in the Treasury system?
It's crucial in the voting process. ZKPs allow people to vote anonymously while still being able to cryptographically prove that their vote is valid and that they haven't voted multiple times. ZKPs are like the guardians of the Treasury. They're making sure everything runs fairly and securely.
So we've talked about Ouroboros and ZKPs. What about efficiency? The Cardano blockchain is supposed to be very scalable.
It is.
Does that play a role here?
Scalability is essential, especially as the Cardano community grows. More and more people will participate in the Treasury process. And the Cardano blockchain is designed to handle that.
A lot of transactions.
Lots of transactions without getting bogged down.
Because if the system couldn't handle a large volume of votes or proposals, it would slow the whole thing down.
But Cardano's architecture means that the Treasury system can actually process thousands of votes and proposals seamlessly. So it keeps its speed and performance even when there's high demand.
So that ensures that it can grow alongside the Cardano community.
That's why the code for the Treasury system has undergone rigorous audits by independent experts to identify and mitigate those potential security risks.
Okay, so it's a multi-layered approach to security.
Yeah.
Combining that robust technology with thorough testing.
It's what makes the Cardano Treasury system so resilient and secure.
But something else we talked about earlier was sustainability. How does Cardano ensure that the system can keep supporting the platform's growth?
A lot of projects, they start with great ideas, but then
they run out of steam. So what makes Cardano different?
Well, I think it's built into the core of their system.
Okay, so it's not just about funding projects in the short term. It's about building something that can last.
And it creates this really interesting dynamic where the community's activity directly funds the future development of the platform.
That's pretty cool. But, having funds is only part of the equation. You have to manage them wisely, too, right?
Cardano has this interesting concept called reserve half-life to address that.
Reserve half-life. That sounds kind of complicated.
It sounds more complicated than it is. Think of it this way. You've got a fixed supply of ADA, and some of that ADA is held in reserve for the Treasury. The reserve half-life is basically the amount of time it takes for those reserves to be depleted by half.
So it's kind of like a measure of how long the initial funds can last.
Yeah, if everything else stays the same, it tells you how long those reserves could keep the Treasury running.
And how does that relate to sustainability?
Well, Cardano has chosen a reserve half-life that balances their current needs with long-term sustainability.
So it's not about spending everything all at once. It's about making sure there are funds available for the future.
It's about thinking long-term, not just short-term.
I like that.
And of course, as the network grows and transaction volume increases, those reserves become less and less important.
Because more funding is coming from those transaction fees.
Precisely. It's a system that's designed to evolve over time and adapt to the changing needs of the network.
But I think it would be helpful to put things in perspective by comparing Cardano's approach to something more traditional. So how does Cardano's approach differ from, say, the way a central bank manages a fiat currency?
Well, the supply of ADA is capped.
Meaning they can't just print more whenever they want.
There's a limited supply. It's a totally different mindset. And that's in stark contrast to fiat currencies, where central banks can just print more money whenever they feel like it.
Which often leads to inflation and other problems.
Cardano's community-driven approach is the complete opposite of a centralized system, where decisions are usually made by a small group at the top.
Like a board of directors or a government agency.
And often you don't even know why they're making the decisions they're making. Whereas with Cardano, everything is transparent.
So I'm curious, what does the future hold for this system?
As Cardano continues to develop, I think the Treasury system is going to play an even bigger role. It's not just about funding development anymore, it's about transitioning to a fully self-governing system.
Wow, so the community will have complete control.
That's the goal. And the Treasury system is at the heart of that transition.
That's a pretty ambitious vision.
Smart contracts could be used to automatically release funds when certain conditions are met, or to manage voting and delegation in a more secure and efficient way.
So it's not just about voting anymore. It's about creating a system where the community can manage the treasury in a much more nuanced way. That's a really cool concept. What's next for Cardano when it comes to smart contracts?
One of the things I'm most excited about is their integration of the ACTUS standard.
ACTO standard, what's that?
It stands for Algorithmic Contract Types Unified Standard. It's basically a set of standards for modeling financial contracts that's already widely used in traditional finance.
Oh, okay. So they're building on existing standards.
By integrating ACTUS, Cardano is making it easier for companies and institutions to adopt blockchain technology.
So it's kind of like a bridge between traditional finance and the blockchain world.
It's a smart move because it opens up a much bigger market for their tech.
Makes sense.
Traditional financial institutions get the benefits of blockchain, and Cardano gets wider adoption.
It's a win-win.
So it's like a trade-off between being inclusive and being efficient.
Well, after this deep dive, I'm really impressed by how much ingenuity went into building this system. It's a combination of really cutting-edge technology and this real commitment to community empowerment.
The Cardano Treasury System is an experiment in decentralized governance and funding, and it's exciting to see how it continues to evolve.
I agree. It's been really interesting to learn about the technical side of things, but also the possibilities for the future.
For a more decentralized and community-driven future.
As we wrap up, I encourage our listeners to continue learning about Cardano because there are a lot of possibilities and the future is being shaped right now. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Cardano Treasury System. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning.
Thank you for being part of Cardano for Everyone. We hope you gained something valuable from today's episode. If you'd like to support our mission of making Cardano knowledge accessible for all, consider selecting Pasta from the pool list when you delegate. Every bit of support helps us bring more content to listeners like you. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll see you on the next episode.